Venus has entered Cancer after a time in Gemini, the double-bodied Gemini, where she gathered data, split realities, and danced in duality. Now she's moving into Cancer, into the sacred space of embodiment of love, nurture, and protection. So in this video, we're going to explore the symbolic journey of Venus. We'll look at the rose of Venus, the pentagram of divine balance, and how she carries a sword of discernment after a time in Mercury's domain. So in Cancer, we have Jupiter present, and under the pressure from the Saturn-Neptune square, we'll have a look at the creative tension between dreams and discipline, the need for boundaries, and our call to sacred embodiment. So we'll have a look. Venus as the morning star, and the warrior goddess, the astrology of Venus in Cancer, and the tension with Saturn and Neptune, you know, that disillusionment versus love, or ideals of love, and embodying Hermetic laws, the as above and so below. And then we'll look at the emotional wisdom, because at the ingress, the moon is in Libra, and bringing that balance in the ingress chart, and it's in mutual, though they can't see each other, it is in mutual reception, the moon and Venus. So we'll look at things like, are our ideals grounded? Are our boundaries sacred? Or are they self-sabotaging? We'll have a look at how it applies to us in the everyday. So Venus on her ingress to Cancer is the morning star. So she rises before dawn on the east, before the sun rises up. So she's a morning star on her ingress, has been for some time. And it won't be until the conjunction with the sun, the cazimi, the Venus cazimi, that she actually becomes the evening star. So she'll rise after the sun sets. She is the morning star, and in this expression of Venus, she's more like the warrior goddess. So she's more young, masculine energy. So rather than receptive, she's more active, outgoing, action. So that is her expression as a morning star. So you can think of her, you know, think of the warrior goddesses in myth. You can think of Inanna, the Sumerian Inanna. She was like fertile, beautiful, about desire, passion, but she was also fierce and furious and associated with war. In fact, the morning star has often been linked with war. So it's not just all this beauty, love, light. She's actually fierce. She's a fierce energy. And this is how she ingresses into Cancer. So Venus, the significations of Venus, you know, what is Venus all about? I'm going to read from Ren Butler's Archetypal Universe, because I can't come up with a better definition. It's brilliant. So we've got principles of Venus, the impulses towards love and friendship, harmony and pleasure, grace and beauty, forces of attraction. But the other side of it is, you know, there's always a shadow. As there is always a masculine and a feminine to a planet, there is always a light and dark expression of that planet. So kind of the shadow of Venus is social pretensions and shallowness, vanity and conceit, self-indulgence and laziness, cravings for sugar as a substitute for love. So you get the flavour. That is a flavour of Venus. So Venus is entering Cancer on the 31st, having been in Gemini for a period of time. And Gemini is Mercury's temple. So what I'm finding very interesting is on the ingress, we have this Mercury Cazimi, the 31st of August, which is when she enters. We also have the Mercury Cazimi. So this is where Mercury conjoins the sun, and Mercury is in his chariot, so to speak. So he's empowered by the sun. It's a reset for Mercury when he moves slightly past. Mercury will go from the evening star to the morning star. So we then have Venus as the morning star and Mercury as the morning star. So it's a seeding time. This is happening in Leo, and I believe Mercury as the messenger will be kind of heralding the heart of Leo, the lion, the strength, the vitality, the life force, the beauty of the sun. And this will be heralded by Mercury as he goes into the Cazimi. We're halfway through the retrograde. Mercury is in retrograde. It began retrograde on the 17th, actually entered Leo on the 27th of June. So Mercury has been retrograding and kind of reviewing and redoing and resetting, and it will connect with the sun in a retrograde. So we're halfway through that, and that will continue on. I just look at my dates. Mercury will go direct on the 11th, so the week after it will station direct and continue through Leo. So that kind of heralding, Leo is very much about ourselves, our vitality, our life force, our purpose, our ideals, all these things. So that is a very interesting fact that on the ingress that is happening when she's bringing what she's learned and what she's picked up in Gemini in Mercury's temple. So that's quite an interesting occurrence. Although they can't see each other because they're next door to each other, Cancer, Venus in Cancer, Mercury in Leo, but they're in our sky in the same week, and this is happening in the sky. So, and I think it has meaning because Venus has just come from there. So I have this sense that Mercury will bring the warrior goddess, bring her kind of messages, heralding, this authenticity, this strength, maybe this fierceness, this fierce side of Venus. And what we also have as she ingresses into Cancer, Cancer is the temple of the goddess, the moon. And the moon is in Libra. And again, they cannot witness each other because of the aspect. They're at 150-degree aspect, but they have what's called mutual reception. So Libra is the other temple of Venus, Taurus. Taurus and Libra are the temples of Venus, and she's exalted in Pisces. But yeah, the moon's in there. So Venus is going into the moon's temple, and the moon is sitting at the ingress in Venus's temple. So again, the moon will support. There will be that support, and then the moon will come into aspect. So there's that beautiful support between one another. So that ebb and flow, the changing face of the moon, that will be very much, part of this transit through Cancer. So we have all that going on at the ingress. That's the actual ingress. And I always see an ingress, and then something happening as that blueprint. We also have the day after, we will have Venus in an inferior square to the Neptune-Saturn conjunction. So Venus has got a lot to contend with. Venus has got a lot going on. Okay. And if you look at the significations, in the Hermetic principles of as above, so below, Hermes, by the way, is Mercury. So, as above, so below. This will be played out down here. What's going on in the cosmos is played out down here. And our job is to be aware of what's happening in the cosmos, so we're not grabbed by those happenings and unconscious of them and get kind of swept along with the archetypal happenings in our sky. So we have all this going on in our sky. Now, this the tension and the pressure that's going to be brought to bear by Saturn and Neptune sitting there in Aries with the, the fiery Aries, the initiator. It could be, that there will be a sense of, with Neptune, our ideals, our dreams, the sense of the mystical, oceanic, and then we've got those boundaries and limitations and constraints, and the no of Saturn, and bringing things into the material. It could be that we start seeing um, our constraints within our relationships, the reality, our ideals of how love affairs should be, our sense of, that force of attraction to things. So our pleasure, we may seek pleasure that we can't fulfill in reality. We may have that kind of disillusionment with what is going on at this time. Um, there can be that sense of care coming in now. Whereas Venus was in Gemini, Gemini is this double bodied energy. It is the home of Mercury. So it's the messages about what is dual, what is, polarized. So we could have got, and it was in a lovely sextile with Mercury. Venus was going through Gemini. But it could be that we have had those mercurial messages about where our boundaries are, where we're disillusioned, where we're upset, where we can't push things and have the ideal things that we want. Now, with her going into Cancer, it can be that we have, more some of the fierceness of Venus as the warrior goddess may go down, and but the pressure, of seeing the other, because the relationship is just that, it's not just you. So your ideals of how you want a relationship to be, it may be, somebody's boundaries are kind of tighter than yours, or they're stepping over yours, or you're stepping over those, that kind of conflicting dual purpose that Gemini brings. Now she's in Cancer. There's that flow of the moon's energy, that ebb and flow, that the Cancer nurture, protection, love, that beautiful energy of Cancer coming in now, where Venus will see perhaps, how to relate in a better way. Excuse me. It may be that, we see ways that we can relate that are more loving, are more nurturing. We may be able to see our communication is too harsh, or it's too subdued. We may find that beautiful balance that Venus, the harmony that Venus will bring, where we can get into the difficult conversations, um, the things that maybe have been more difficult to talk about while she's been in Gemini, and we're seeing the kind of duality, the polarity there. It may be now that beautiful energy and that flowing energy of the moon can bring those conversations up, that your communication can be kinder, sweeter, both, and that can be in a love relationship. It can also be in, your work, your family, anybody you come across who you may have been having a bit of a with. Because although this is tension, I think when there is limitation, when there is constraint, when there is, the no of Saturn against our ideals, we can find creative way forward. And I think Cancer will bring that energy to bear. And one of the things that I am really excited about Venus being in Cancer, Cancer is the gateway of soul into the material. Cancer is about embodiment. So um, the time that Venus has spent in Gemini, Gemini, it's the mind, it's air, it's communication, it's messages. So Gemini can bring a kind of mental split Okay. We can be, it's Hermes, it's Mercury. We can be up on Mount Olympus and then down in Hades in the underworld, in the muck and the mire. So we can have that kind of alternating up and down, like mentally. And we're coming into Cancer, which is the emotionality. And Venus is directly coming into this square with Saturn and Neptune with all the significations I've just talked about. But we need to remember that we are embodying, we are bringing soul into body in Cancer. We're embodying what we think, feel, our actions. It's all coming together. Now, that square from Saturn and Neptune is in Aries, it's fire, and Cancer is water. So I really feel we've got this alchemy we can do with this tension. We can be really creative because what we learn in Gemini, what went on while Venus transited there, might have caused splits. It might have caused a kind of disconnect in our communication, in our minds. And now she's gone into Cancer. We need to be aware that's water, it's feelings. So we can have the fire so high with this square, that the water boils over, our emotions boil over. But there's that tension where we can have the heat just right. Okay, so our will, our desires, our passion, the fire, okay, with our water, Cancer, the moon, Venus, that we can have the temperature just right so we can keep it bubbling. And I see Venus as an amazing vehicle for alchemy, inner alchemy, simply because she has so much to do with love, pleasure, relationship. It's desire, isn't it? And it's desire, two people's desires coming together often, which cause the clashes, which cause the water to boil over. And I want to show you something about Venus, because Venus, why I say I think she's an amazing alchemical vehicle in that sense, supporter of that inner alchemy, is because she has every 8.5 years, she has this cycle. Okay, I'll show you it. Okay. And when she goes retrograde, as she goes round and round in this 8.5 year cycle, she comes close to Earth and she makes 5 retrogrades near to the Earth. Okay. And it's at these points that makes that beautiful rose, if you can see that rose coming, beautiful rose of Venus. But that is also a pentagram. And we have these the mercurial hermetic principles, which is so much Hermes is astrology. So we have this sense of all is mind, okay, in the Hermetic principles. So the universe is mental. So that sense of bringing our minds away from the fire of our desires and our passion, not that there's anything wrong with that whatsoever, but it's how we can put our mind on a higher level. This is it is the pentagram of the earth, fire, air and water. And at the moment we're dealing with the elements of fire and water. And the 5th element is the ether. It is spirit. And, hermetically, spirit, the universe, is mental. So I really believe that we can use our mental powers and also allow that to inform where our emotions are in terms of relationship, in terms of our passion, our forces of attraction, our pleasure, all the Venusian topics. So we can bring those principles into what's going on with Venus. We can bring them into relation with other people, you know, and with ourselves and with spirit. We can bring that together. And we've got that principle of correspondence, the as above, so below. I mentioned it, that is that sense of what is going up there. It's archetypal, and it is also in our minds, it is also in our souls, that archetypal pattern. So, yeah, vibration, we've got the principle of polarities, we've got the principle of with rhythm, the flow, the ebb and flow, which is more of the water, that's that sense of water. So bringing our emotions, our feelings, our love, our nurture, into a rhythm, which is going to cause that kind of bring about those harmonious principles of Venus. And then, of course, the last principle is, the principle of gender, the male and the female. We have a masculine expression of Venus as the morning star. So it's active. So it's actively communicating those things that need to be communicated to resolve the conflict if we can. I mean, it takes two, but then we're only responsible for ourselves. So it's getting ourselves into that harmonious communication. If somebody doesn't want to receive that, then, there's not anything but it's a good principle for us. It really is a good principle for us. The other reason I'm bringing up Hermetic, the Hermetic principles, is we have Jupiter co-present with Venus as she ingresses into Cancer, and she will make a conjunction with Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is fertility. It's the other benefic planet. Venus is benefic too. She's exalted in Pisces, which is Jupiter's sign. So they're beautiful bedfellows in that sense. They're beautiful bedfellows. So Jupiter, although he's got this benevolence and, expansion, fertility, all these, generosity, all these wonderful principles, we need to remember that Jupiter is also to do with the law. He's Zeus. And, in myth, he's Zeus. And Zeus was not always pleasant. He was an enforcer, rightly or wrongly, he was an enforcer. So we have this dynamic going on with Venus and Jupiter, which can be very alchemical, can be very alchemical. We can use that energy of Jupiter, who wants to bring the law, universal law, Hermetic principles, but the law. Okay, so Jupiter wants to bring that to us. They are both benefic planets. They are both good planets in that sense. They both have their dark sides. Just go look at the myth of Zeus and you'll see what sort of dark side he had, and Venus has. But we can bring these things into balance, if we're overdoing the pleasure in any way, food, buying too much, being, going over the top with our appearance, beauty, and aesthetics in the home, spending too much money, or that kind of conceit and vanity. These things can be brought into a balance, okay? And Venus is that pentagram, and that pentagram to me is representative of the elements and of spirit. So we've got the archetypes and the law that are going to bring these energies to bear, where we can sit and not sit, we've got to be active, but we can bring beautiful things about over this month. And remember that it will be the month. I'll just get the dates. So Venus is in Cancer until the 3rd of September. That's when she one sec, when she leaves. Yeah, so she comes in on the 31st of July. She leaves on the 3rd of September into Virgo. She has this square with Saturn and Neptune. This tension, it's quite a short period. It's from her ingress, really. She's immediately, the exact square is on the 1st of August and until the 4th. But she will be conjunct Jupiter again on the 11th of August. So that is when Mercury also stations direct. So there is such a connection, an ebb and a flow. And we're Cancer, Venus in Cancer, which is the moon, which is about the flow of life. It's about the change in faces. So we have to have this sense of malleability to be able to receive the messages that are coming, to be able to move and flow with these archetypes. So I hope that made some sense for you. That's what I have for you. If you enjoyed, please like, please subscribe, and drop a comment and tell me how the transit is going for you. Okay, see you on the other side.